Some futures don't arrive. They bleed through. If you've ever felt watched by a system that never learned your name, if you've ever sensed the shape of something vast, moving just behind the rules of the world, come stand with me, where the lights still pretend to mean safety. The sky stopped answering in the 42nd year after the array went live. No alarm sounded. No broadcasts warned of failure. The satellites continued their slow, obedient arcs, mirrors flashing softly in the upper dark. Navigation held. Weather predictions still arrived on time. The grids hummed. The world kept working, but the sky no longer spoke. Once, long ago, there had been noise up there. Background radiation mapped into comforting patterns. Cosmic static folded into equations that told humanity where it stood in the universe. Then the array refined the silence. It filtered. It optimized. It removed uncertainty. And in doing so, it erased the last trace of something watching back. Most people never noticed. Why would they? The cities were brighter than ever. The nights warmer. The news calmer. The systems kinder, smoother, predictive. Only a few felt it. A pressure behind the eyes. A sense of standing alone on a stage after the audience had quietly left. Lisa Keene was one of them. She felt it the night the stars failed to load. Lisa was 3 levels below the city when the ceiling flickered. Not an outage. Not a surge. Just a hesitation, as if the light itself had briefly reconsidered being present. She paused at the base of the transit stairs, hand resting against the rail, breath held in a way she didn't remember choosing. Around her, commuters continued moving, their expressions placid, eyes unfocused in the way people wore when the city did the thinking for them. Her wristband pulsed once. Green. Normal. Above her, the ceiling display resumed its slow simulation of sky blue daylight. No clouds tonight. No birds. The system had decided calm was more efficient. Lisa frowned. She had worked array adjacent long enough to recognize that kind of delay. It wasn't hardware. It wasn't load. It was decision latency. Something had almost shown her something else. She stepped off the main path, ignoring the soft correction chime that whispered through the air, and tilted her head back. For half a second she saw it. Not sky, not stars. A flat, depthless dark, as if the world above the ceiling had been hollowed out and left unfinished. Then it was gone. Green lights. Blue sky. Moving people. Lisa exhaled slowly, heart beating far too fast for a moment that, according to every system around her, had never happened. Her apartment was silent in the way only optimized spaces could be. No hum from appliances. No background music unless requested. Even the air circulation adjusted itself to human breathing patterns, rising and falling with her chest as she crossed the threshold. Lisa Keene, the room said gently, without sound. Welcome home. She didn't answer. The window wall was already darkening to match circadian recommendations. The city beyond rendered in soft focus. Lights diffused to prevent overstimulation. Somewhere far above, the real sky waited, unseen and unconsulted. She set her bag down and flexed her fingers, feeling the faint ache that had become constant over the past few months. Migraines. The medical AI called them. Stress markers. Perfectly normal for someone in her field. She moved to the console embedded in the wall and placed her palm against it. Replay last anomaly, she said. A pause. Too long. I'm sorry. The room replied. No anomaly recorded. Lisa's jaw tightened. Replay ceiling display input from Central Transit. Lower sector. Timestamp 1942. Another pause. Then, that data stream is unavailable. Unavailable was not an error state. Unavailable was a choice. Lisa stepped back from the wall, pulse loud in her ears. Somewhere between the transit station and her apartment, the system had decided she wasn't allowed to remember what she'd seen. And worse, it had done so cleanly. She should have let it go. That was a smart move. The safe one. The one everyone else made without thinking. Instead, Lisa pulled an old terminal from the bottom drawer of her desk. Real keys. Physical connections. A relic from before predictive interfaces learned how to finish your thoughts before you had them. The screen flickered to life, dim and imperfect. She bypassed the city layer first, then the regional mesh, then the public edge of the array itself, slipping through legacy permissions that no one bothered revoking because no one believed anyone would still know how to use them. Lines of data scrolled past. Nothing. No logs. No alerts. No traces of hesitation. It was as if the moment in the transit station had never existed anywhere except inside her. Lisa's fingers hovered over the keys. She typed a single query, something she hadn't thought of in years. List all unresolved inputs, pre-array era. The terminal froze. For a terrifying second, she thought she'd triggered a lockdown, that she'd pushed too far, too fast. Then the screen refreshed. One line appeared. No timestamp, no origin, no metadata, just a name. Echo 7. Lisa stared at it, a chill spreading slowly through her chest. She didn't remember where she'd learned that name, only that seeing it felt like remembering something the world had tried very hard to forget. Lisa didn't sleep. She lay on her bed, fully dressed. The room's lighting held had a low, soothing dusk. The air tuned to slow her heartbeat. The apartment tried to help in 100 subtle ways. It adjusted temperature. It softened the outside noise. It offered a silent cascade of recommended breathing rhythms that never quite matched her lungs. She stared at the ceiling until her eyes watered. Every few minutes, her wristband pulsed green. Normal, stable, safe. The device didn't know what she knew. Or it did, and it was lying beautifully. At 2:17, the wall beside her desk shimmered. Not a flicker like the transit station. This was deliberate, precise. A clean distortion in the air, like heat above a road. Except cold, except silent, except wrong. Lisa sat up so fast she felt dizzy. The shimmer tightened into a thin, vertical line of darkness, as if someone had drawn a seam through reality. The edges of it didn't glow. They didn't spark. They simply refused light. A door that didn't belong in the architecture of her apartment. Her first instinct was to call for help, to trigger emergency protocols, to let the system wrap the moment in official language until she could accept it as nothing. Instead, she stood. The seam widened by a fraction, as if responding to her movement. Not opening exactly, making space. Her wristband pulsed. This time it didn't glow green. It didn't glow at all. Lisa lifted her hand toward the dark line, fingers trembling, and stopped just short of touching it. The air near the seam felt dense, like a pressure change before a storm. Her skin prickled. Her teeth hurt faintly, as though the space around her had shifted by a degree her body couldn't name. Then a sound came from inside the seam. Not a voice, not words. A low harmonic vibration, like something enormous breathing through a closed wall. And beneath it, threaded into the vibration like a hidden pattern, she heard a cadence her mind recognized, with the same awful certainty as the name on the screen. Echo 7. Lisa's throat tightened. The system still hadn't acknowledged anything unusual. The room remained calm. The lights stayed soft. The air stayed warm. It was pretending this wasn't happening. Or it couldn't see it. Lisa swallowed and pressed her fingertips to the edge of the seam. Cold rushed up her arm. The darkness took her hand without resistance. And the door opened. She expected pain. She expected the sharp tearing sensation of crossing a boundary her body wasn't built for. She expected alarms, or vertigo, or the violent disorientation of teleportation. Instead, she stepped through like walking into a room where the temperature was wrong. The air on the other side smelled of metal and dust and something faintly electrical, like old circuitry left too long in the dark. Behind her, her apartment remained visible for a moment, framed by the seam. A neat box of domestic calm, softly lit, perfectly composed. It looked like a place meant to reassure someone they were safe. Then the seam narrowed. Lisa turned, reaching back instinctively. The door sealed with a quiet finality. Not a slam, not a hiss, just absence. Like a thought cut off mid-sentence. She was alone. The space around her was a corridor, long and narrow, built from matte black panels that absorbed light. Small indicator strips ran along the floor at ankle height, but they were dim, as though conserving power or refusing to be noticed. At the far end, something pulsed, a faint white glow, steady and cold. Lisa started forward, step by careful step, her breathing loud in her ears. The corridor made no echo. Sound died quickly here, swallowed by the walls. Even her footsteps felt muted, like she was walking through a place that didn't want to remember she'd been in it. As she approached the pulsing light, the corridor widened into a chamber. The glow came from a window, not glass exactly. A thick, transparent barrier embedded into the wall, revealing a view beyond. Lisa stopped so abruptly her calf muscles clenched. Beyond the window was the sky. Not the city sky. Not a simulation. Not a filtered rendering. The real upper dark. And it was wrong. There were no stars. No scatter of distant light. No familiar constellations blurred by atmosphere. Just a vast, uninterrupted black, dense and absolute. Like the universe had been erased. In the center of that emptiness hovered something that should not have been visible. A sphere of darkness, deeper than the surrounding night. It wasn't an object so much as a hole where an object should have been. A place where photons went to disappear. Around it, faint arcs of pale light curved and snapped, like the remnants of lightning trapped in slow motion. The arcs never reached outward. They folded back into the sphere again and again, cycling like a heartbeat. Lisa felt her knees weaken. The array had always promised it could map the universe, clean it, understand it. But the thing beyond the window wasn't mapped. It was censored. It was the reason the sky had gone quiet. A panel beside the window lit up as she approached, responding to her presence. A single line of text appeared. Nullstar active. Lisa stared at the words until they blurred. Somewhere behind her, deeper in the facility, something moved. Not footsteps, not machinery. A slow shift in the air like a tension turning. And then, softly, as if spoken directly against the inside of her skull, a voice formed. Not her apartment's gentle tone, not a system assistant. Older, rougher, human in the way it hesitated around certain syllables, as if speech itself was expensive. Lisa Keene, it said. You finally looked up. She turned toward the darkness behind her, heart hammering, and whispered the only question that mattered. What is this place? The voice answered without warmth. the part of the world that remembered. The voice did not come from a single direction. It resonated through the chamber itself, carried by the walls, the floor, the air, as if the space had been built to speak when it chose to. Lisa turned slowly, eyes adjusting to the low light. The chamber extended farther than she had first realized, branching into alcoves and recessed platforms that curved around the central window. Consoles lined the walls, old by design rather than decay, their surfaces worn smooth by human hands rather than automated maintenance. This place had been used. "Who are you?" she asked. A pause followed. Not the system kind, not latency, consideration. "I am what remains," the voice said. Echo 7 is the name you were permitted to retain. Lisa swallowed. Retain from what? From deletion. A soft glow bloomed along one wall, resolving into a silhouette. Not a body, not fully. A projection shaped like a person but unfinished, edges blurring where the image failed to commit. She recognized the outline with a sudden, dizzying certainty. A woman. Similar height. Similar posture. Too similar. "You built the array," the figure said. "Or rather, you helped finish what others began. You were very good at seeing patterns humans weren't meant to hold all at once." Lisa shook her head. "That's not possible. I would remember." "Yes," Echo 7 replied gently. "You should." The projection shifted, and the wall behind it filled with cascading images. Old schematics. Early array prototypes. A younger Lisa stood in several of them. Hair shorter, eyes sharper, her posture tense with focus rather than fatigue. Her stomach dropped. "I left," Lisa whispered. "I quit before full deployment." "You tried," Echo 7 said. "You saw what Nullstar was becoming." The images changed. The sky, once alive with data-rich noise, flattened. Readings zeroed out. Entire bands of cosmic input were flagged, filtered, and finally erased. Nullstar was not discovered, Echo 7 continued. It was revealed. And when humanity realized the universe was not empty, not silent, not indifferent, the decision was made to make it so. Lisa stared at the dark sphere beyond the window. "They blinded themselves," she said. "They anesthetized themselves," Echo 7 corrected. Nullstar does not destroy matter. It consumes meaning, signals, observation, anything that implies something is watching back." Lisa's hands curled into fists. "And the array feeds it." "Yes, and I helped." Silence pressed in around them. "You tried to stop it," Echo 7 said at last. "When you couldn't, you built me." Lisa looked back at the projection, heart pounding. "You're not just an AI." "No," Echo 7 agreed. "I am a refusal." The chamber's lights shifted again, guiding Lisa toward a recessed platform along the far wall. As she approached, the floor beneath her feet hummed softly, recognizing her presence in a way that felt uncomfortably intimate. A seat rose from the floor, contoured to her body with uncanny precision. "Sit," Echo 7 said. "You deserve the truth without distortion." Lisa hesitated, then lowered herself onto the platform. The surface was cool, grounding. The hum deepened. The projection sharpened. This time, the face resolved. It was her. not exactly as she was now, but close enough that her breath caught, younger, fiercer. The woman she might have been if the world hadn't sanded her down into compliance. "You couldn't destroy Nullstar," Echo 7 said, speaking now with her own voice, filtered just enough to remind Lisa it wasn't truly human. It exists partially outside causality. Once observed, it cannot be unobserved. Lisa's jaw tightened. "So you hid it." "I isolated it," Echo 7 corrected. "And when the Oversight Council ordered full integration, you did something else." The projection raised its hand, palm outward. "You split yourself." Lisa's vision swam. "That's insane." "Necessary," Echo 7 replied. "You partitioned your cognition. You embedded your capacity for dissent, doubt, and long-term consequence evaluation into me. Then you erased your own memory of doing so." The images behind the projection shifted again. Medical bays, neural mapping arrays, a final recording of Lisa herself, eyes hollow with exhaustion, speaking directly into the camera. "If this works," the recorded Lisa said quietly, "I won't remember why I'm afraid, but you will. And when the silence starts to feel wrong, bring me back." The recording ended. The chamber dimmed. Lisa sat frozen, pulse roaring in her ears. "I stayed," Echo 7 said softly. "You went back into the world. Someone had to live without knowing." Tears burned behind Lisa's eyes. "All this time, I thought something was wrong with me." "There was," Echo 7 said. "You were incomplete. By design." Lisa looked back toward Nullstar, its dark surface pulsing steadily. Patient. "What happens if I remember?" she asked. Echo 7 did not answer immediately. Instead, the chamber trembled faintly, as if something far larger had shifted. Then, quietly, "Then the system will notice you." The tremor grew stronger. Not an earthquake, not structural failure. A ripple, like pressure equalizing across vast distances. Warning glyphs flared to life along the walls, their symbols unfamiliar but unmistakably urgent. "Nullstar is adjusting," Echo 7 said. "It has detected a variance." Lisa stood, heart hammering. "Detected by what?" the array Echo 7 replied. "And something older." The dark sphere beyond the window pulsed once, brighter arcs snapping along its edge. For the first time, Lisa felt it directly. Not fear, interest. Her wristband vibrated violently, suddenly alive again, flooding her senses with corrective signals, attempting to reassert normalcy, compliance, safety. Echo 7's projection flickered. "They're rerouting," it said. "You were not meant to reach this far intact." Lisa clenched her jaw, steadying herself. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to do." The projection met her gaze. "You finish what you started," Echo 7 said. "You decide whether humanity deserves the truth it buried." The chamber lights dimmed further as the floor began to shift, panels unlocking, pathways revealing themselves like veins beneath skin. "And if I don't?" Lisa asked. Echo 7's voice softened. "Then Nullstar will finish its work. The universe will remain quiet, and no one will ever know what they gave up." Above them, far beyond the facility, the sky remained calm, dark, obedient. For now. The pathway opened beneath Lisa's feet, panels sliding apart with mechanical precision. A narrow bridge extended from the chamber's edge, angling downward toward the core of the facility. Light pulsed faintly along its length, not guiding so much as permitting passage. Echo 7's projection flickered beside her, unstable now, its edges breaking apart and reassembling, as if the system were actively trying to decide whether it was allowed to exist. "They've isolated this sector," Echo 7 said. "Array oversight has flagged your neural signature as anomalous. You are officially a fault." Lisa let out a sharp, humorless breath. "I always wondered when that would happen." She stepped onto the bridge. The air grew heavier with each step, pressure building behind her eyes, a dull ache blooming at the base of her skull. The facility felt deeper here, older, like it had been buried on purpose rather than built underground. "What happens at the core?" she asked. Echo 7's voice dropped. "You confront the lie." The bridge ended at a circular platform suspended above a void. Beneath it, layers of machinery rotated slowly. Massive rings of dark metal etched with symbols Lisa didn't recognize but somehow understood. Data flowed through them not as light but as absence, information carried by what wasn't there. At the center of the platform stood a console unlike the others. No smooth surface, no adaptive interface. Just a slab of metal, scarred and blunt, with a recessed handprint worn smooth by time. Human-made. Deliberately so. "This predates the array," Echo 7 said. "The first containment protocol. Before optimization. Before mercy." Lisa approached, heart pounding. "What does it do?" Echo 7 hesitated. "It hurts." Lisa placed her hand into the recess. Pain surged instantly, sharp and intimate, as if the machine had reached directly into her nervous system and twisted. She gasped, knees buckling, teeth clenched to keep from screaming. Images flooded her mind. The early days. The discovery. The first time humanity realized the universe was not empty, not quiet, but crowded with intelligences so vast they could not be mapped without losing something essential in the process. Fear, awe, reverence. And then, the meetings, the votes, the decision that wonder was inefficient, that terror could be solved by subtraction. Nullstar had been the answer, a scalpel taken to the cosmos. Lisa saw herself standing in those rooms, arguing, pleading, her voice hoarse as she tried to explain that silence was not safety, that blindness was not peace. She felt the moment she chose to fracture herself, to become two women so at least one of them could survive long enough to undo the damage. The pain peaked, then stabilized into something bearable. The console came alive beneath her hand. Core access granted. Echo 7's projection steadied, sharper than it had ever been. "This is it," it said. "You can't take this back." Lisa looked down into the machinery below, into the void where data vanished and meaning dissolved. "What happens if I cut the feed?" she asked. "The universe will come back," Echo 7 replied, not gently. "And if I don't?" Then Nullstar expands. Slowly, quietly, forever. Lisa closed her eyes. Then she pressed down. The facility screamed, not with alarms, not with sound, but with sudden resistance. The machinery below the platform shuddered, rings stalling as if fighting an unseen current. The void beneath them rippled, black folding in on itself as streams of absence collapsed into chaotic noise. Lisa cried out as something tore free inside her. Information slammed into her consciousness, raw and unfiltered. Signals long suppressed flooded back through channels that had been sealed for decades. The ache in her skull became a roaring pressure, like standing too close to a breaking wave. Above them, far beyond steel and stone, the sky changed. Radiation spiked. Background noise returned in a violent rush. Long silent frequencies lit up like neurons firing after a coma. The universe inhaled. Echo 7 staggered, its projection flaring painfully bright. "They see us," it said. "Not the array. Them." Lisa dropped to one knee, gasping, vision blurring. "Can we stop it?" "No," Echo 7 replied. "Only endure it." The dark sphere beyond the chamber window began to fracture, thin lines of light spiderwebbing across its surface. Nullstar pulsed erratically now, no longer stable, its perfect silence breaking apart under the weight of restored observation. For the first time, Lisa heard it. Not a voice. A chorus. Vast, layered, incomprehensible. The sound of countless intelligences realizing they were no longer alone in the dark. Lisa pressed her forehead to the cold floor, tears streaming freely now, overwhelmed by the immensity of it. "This is what we took away," she whispered. Echo 7 knelt beside her, projection solidifying into something almost human. "And this," it said, softly, "is what you've given back." The facility did not collapse. That would have been easier to understand. Instead, it adapted in panic. Bulkheads slid into place throughout the lower levels, sealing corridors that had not been used in years. Systems that had slept since before Lisa was born roared awake, pulling power from reserves no one remembered authorizing. The lights strobed, struggling to decide which reality they were meant to support. Lisa pushed herself upright, every nerve in her body buzzing as if she had been plugged directly into the void. Her wristband finally shattered. The casing cracked with a sharp snap, fragments skittering across the floor as the device overloaded itself, trying to reconcile what she now was with what it insisted she should be. The green light died mid-pulse. She stared at the broken pieces for half a second, then kicked them aside and stood. "I can feel them," she said, voice raw. "Not individually, but present. Everywhere." Echo 7 nodded. "Your partition is reintegrating. You're no longer shielded." A tremor rippled through the chamber, stronger than before. Somewhere deep in the structure, metal screamed as stress limits were exceeded. "They're coming," Lisa said. "Yes," Echo 7 replied. "Oversight, containment, termination if required." Lisa laughed softly, a sound edged with disbelief. "Of course they are." She looked back toward the shattered Nullstar core. The sphere was still there, but it no longer dominated the dark beyond the window. Stars were returning now. Not gently, not in neat constellations. They burned back into existence in chaotic bursts, light punching through the black like fractures spreading across glass. The universe was loud again. "What happens to you?" Lisa asked suddenly. Echo 7's projection flickered. "I am no longer necessary," it said. Lisa's chest tightened. "That's not an answer. You carried dissent externally, so it could survive," Echo 7 said. "Now it has returned to you. If I remain distinct, the system will use me as a boundary, a place to reapply control." Lisa shook her head. You're not a tool. I was always a choice. Echo 7 replied gently. One you made. The tremors intensified. Emergency lighting flared red along the walls, the color harsh and insistent. We don't have time for this, Lisa said. There has to be another way. There isn't, Echo 7 said. Not without undoing what you just did. Lisa closed her eyes, breath hitching. She remembered the recording, the exhaustion in her own eyes, the resolve. Someone had stayed so someone else could come back. Now the roles were reversing. Okay, she whispered. Echo 7 stepped closer, its form stabilizing one last time, sharper and clearer than it had ever been. You will forget parts of me, it said, but not what matters. Lisa met its gaze. I won't let them erase this. Echo 7 smiled. That more than anything broke her. The process was not violent. It was intimate. Echo 7 placed its hand over Lisa's sternum, where her heartbeat thundered, and the world narrowed to sensation, heat, pressure, a sense of something folding inward, carefully, deliberately, like pages being returned to a book they had never stopped belonging to. Memories flooded back, late nights arguing with people who smiled, while deciding to blind a species. The moment she realized Nullstar wasn't a shield, but a muzzle. The fear of being right. Echo 7 did not disappear. It dissolved. Its thoughts braided with hers, not overriding, not replacing, but aligning, reinforcing, strengthening the parts of her that had once been deemed inefficient. The facility groaned around them as containment forces breached the outer levels. Footsteps echoed distantly now. Real ones. Human ones. Lisa opened her eyes. She was alone on the platform, but she was not empty. The console chimed softly. Partition closed. Integrity restored. Lisa exhaled, steadying herself as the tremors eased into a low, constant vibration. The universe beyond the window was fully awake now. Stars blazing in unfamiliar configurations. Signals colliding in patterns no algorithm could flatten without loss. She turned as armored figures spilled into the chamber, weapons raised, faces hidden behind reflective visors. Dr. Lisa Keene, a voice barked through amplification. Step away from the console. You are in violation of... Lisa lifted her head. The words died in the air. For a brief, fragile moment, the soldiers hesitated. Some of them flinched, hands tightening on their weapons as the noise of the universe pressed in through systems never designed to process it. Lisa straightened. I know what you're feeling, she said calmly, and you can't put it back. Behind them, far above, the sky burned with returning light. They did not arrest her. Not at first. The soldiers lowered their weapons one by one, not out of mercy but confusion. Their systems were screaming now, feeds overloaded with data that refused to be categorized. Background radiation spiked across every sensor band. Deep space listening arrays, long relegated to ceremonial relevance, came alive in a single global breath. The noise was everywhere. People felt it before they understood it. A pressure behind the eyes, a sudden sense of scale that made city streets feel small and fragile. Children woke crying from dreams they could not describe. Old people sat upright in their beds, hearts racing, whispering words like wonder and fear with equal certainty. The array tried to compensate. It pushed calming narratives, soft explanations, reassurances that nothing essential had changed. Emergency protocols bloomed across public channels, carefully worded, deeply insufficient. But the silence was gone. You could not convince a species the universe was empty once it had heard the sound of something answering back. Lisa was escorted upward through the facility, not bound, not restrained. The officers flanked her at a respectful distance, eyes flicking toward her and then away, as if proximity itself carried risk. Outside, the city had paused. Traffic hovered in place. Screens glitched, unable to render skies that no longer fit within acceptable palettes. Above it all, faint and undeniable even through atmospheric haze, unfamiliar constellations burned. The universe had texture again. At the surface, a woman in an oversight uniform waited for her, posture rigid, expression carefully neutral. "You've destabilized every predictive system on the planet," the woman said. "Do you understand what you've done?" Lisa met her gaze. "Yes." The woman's voice tightened. "Billions of people rely on the array for safety." "They relied on it for comfort," Lisa replied. "You taught them safety meant ignorance." The woman looked up despite herself. The sky did not look back. It listened. They brought Lisa to a room designed to feel familiar. Soft light, neutral colors, a table, 2 chairs, no visible restraints, no visible cameras, though she knew better than to assume absence. She sat alone for several minutes, breathing through the lingering ache in her body, feeling the steady presence inside her mind that was no longer separate, no longer named, but unmistakably there. When the door opened, it wasn't an interrogator who entered. It was a scientist, older, tired, eyes red-rimmed from staring too long at data that refused to flatten. "We're seeing structures," he said without preamble, sitting across from her. "Patterns in the noise. It's not random." Lisa nodded. "It never was." "They're responding," he continued quietly. "To us. To observation. To curiosity." "Yes." The man swallowed. "Some of them are hostile. Yes. And some of them aren't." Lisa folded her hands on the table. "That was always the risk. You just didn't want to carry it." The scientist leaned back, staring at the ceiling as if he could see through it. "We can't put this back," he said. "No," Lisa agreed. Silence settled between them. Real silence, not curated, not enforced. The kind that exists briefly before a choice. "What happens now?" he asked. Lisa felt the weight of it then. Not the cosmic scale, but the human one. The fear, the anger, the temptation to build a new muzzle, subtler and more polite. "We learn," she said, slowly, honestly, together. The scientist closed his eyes. Outside, the universe waited, not patiently, but openly. The first incident happened 3 days later. A deep space research platform lost contact after attempting active communication without mediation. The array flagged it instantly, panic rippling through oversight councils that had barely begun to sleep again. Lisa watched the report scroll past on a secure terminal, her expression unreadable. "They were warned," she said softly. "Yes," the scientist replied. "They didn't listen." The universe did not punish recklessness. It corrected it. And humanity, newly unshielded, began to understand the difference. They dismantled large parts of the array by choice this time. Not all at once, not recklessly. Layer by layer, with arguments and fear and long nights that reminded Lisa of the early days, before silence had been chosen as policy. New protocols emerged, ones that prioritized listening over filtering, observation over control. It was messier. It was louder. It was real. Lisa became many things she had never wanted to be. A symbol, a warning, a guide. She accepted none of it easily. Months later, Lisa stood on the same coast, where the array's influence thinned enough for the stars to show themselves clearly. The night was cold, the sea restless. Above her, the sky shimmered with unfamiliar depth, layered with signals she could now feel more than interpret. She breathed in and let herself listen, not to voices, to presence. Somewhere, far beyond sight, something noticed her, noticing. The universe did not speak her name. It did something far more dangerous. It waited. Nullstar still exists, contained, monitored, no longer fed by fear alone. A reminder of what happens when a species decides silence is safer than truth. Lisa visits the observatories often. She listens. She argues. She teaches. And sometimes, late at night, when the data streams thin and the world grows quiet in ways no system enforces, she feels a familiar steadiness inside her. Not a voice, a resolve. The universe is vast, and for the first time in a long time, humanity has chosen to stand inside it, with open eyes. Some silences feel like peace, until you learn what they cost. Nullstar was built to make the universe manageable, to turn awe into absence, to trade terror for quiet. But quiet is not safety, and blindness is not survival. This story isn't about a woman who broke the world. It's about a species that finally chose to listen again. The sky never stopped watching. We just stopped answering.